Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance into this Truth Bomb riff. My name is Patrick Lovell, and I'm coming at you on Friday, August 9th, 2024 at approximately 1 p.m. my time. And it's been a minute since my last Truth Bomb riff. It's been more than a month. I just checked out my YouTube page, and it looks like my last solo Truth Bomb riff was on July 3rd. And of course, that puts us about a month and a week out. And I had another, let's call it a truth bomb, that appeared on my YouTube channel that was an interview that I did with a new guy that I'd met recently, who reached out to me because of my activity on X, a gentleman by the name of Uncle Jay. That's his podcast, Uncle Jay. But yeah, it's been a little bit, but it's ironic because what's motivated me to want to record this truth bomb riff right now is, like always, so much going on. And as you can see, my hair is growing back like Linus on Peanuts. So I'm sorry for those of you who were expecting the bald look. I actually was kind of growing accustomed to it, but I've decided to try to grow my hair back, and we'll see how it looks in the next coming couple of months. Maybe I'm better off being bald. But on that note, I hope this finds you well. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm actually on the upside, happy about Team USA's performance in the Olympics, which have been just extraordinary. And I love the Olympics. I think they're just so remarkable. Obviously, on the sort of the main channel on NBC, we had the story of Simone Biles and all of the superstars that were out to support her after her, unfortunate sort of, whatever we call it, performance in Tokyo, and all that she had to battle back from to become this, glorious story and all things Team USA. But, gosh, I mean, from the sport climbing to skateboarding to, a variety of different sports like 3-on-3 basketball and all of these other types of things. I mean, and soccer and rugby. And I do have to say, just, quickly, there was a moment in women's 7-on-7 rugby that was spectacular. A woman from Salt Lake City, Utah, who was this Polynesian woman on the team, had like 50 seconds when she got her hand on the ball, and she ran through a couple of tackles and ran the length of the field to get the winning score, and they had to kick the try or the extra point in to actually win the bronze medal. But it was amazing. But I'm glad I remembered that because these Olympics, for all of the controversy that MAGA has been laying out there, from the opening ceremonies and what they think is sacrilege of the Last Supper, because they had trans and some of the other interesting characters. And anybody who knows French and Parisians know that, art is definitely, and satire has been a part of their culture for a lot longer than most people have known religion, or religions that they're a part of in their personal lives. But yeah, we're talking thousands of years of culture of, the sort of everything in France. Whatever, the bottom line is that we have seen this incredible performance of every type of American that you could possibly think of. And of course, women have had such a huge impact on these games, and women of color, and in the track and field particularly, and also in the swimming events. I just was struck by how beautiful the sort of diversity and this expression of what our country is in terms of excellence. And you don't get to the Olympics to perform at that level. And man, were there a couple of track and field events, but track events specifically, where, just absolutely blew my mind in terms of comebacks and winning medals or the gold, and unexpectedly, and just the competition, the commitment, and everything for those moments. It's just like the symphony of human glory and tragedy, as we used to say in the wide world of sports back in the 70s. But anyway, I just wanted to go off on that rip to kind of set the tone of all of the other madness that's happening, and why I was compelled to record this truth bomb riff. And hello to you guys that haven't seen me in a while, and may have been wondering what's happened to me. So in the last truth bomb, I was compelled because I got basically censored from X. I got booted from X for some stupid reason. I think it was being accused of violent speech, which was ridiculous. And I made that case in the last truth bomb, and I don't even remember what it was now. But I have found myself with increasing regularity getting in trouble on X because of A, the information that I'm putting out there, but more importantly, just the nature of what I'm calling out in terms of what the platform is, which is now becoming mainstream, by the way. I just saw it for the first time last night, for example, on Lawrence O'Donnell, who night in and night out is just bringing it to MAGA and Trump in spectacular ways. But I had never heard this part from him, which echoes what it is that I've been revealing to you guys for some time, which is that A, the platform of X is a propaganda platform. And there's so much misinformation and nauseating disinformation and slander and intimidation and hate speech and all of these elements of just what usually is hand in hand with sort of an effort for fascism. And it's all emanating primarily, the face that we all can see is the guy that most people want to attribute the ownership to, but there's more to it than that. But of course, none other than Elon Musk, the South African via Canada to Wharton Business School to Stanford via his first inclinations with tech to redesign maps, for companies, and then ultimately that got him through a profit situation, which was he realized a big profit from that first buyout to get into fintech, which was PayPal, which then led to another, I think, 370 million, or maybe it was 170 million profit from there. But that's what got him into the ability to become Tesla, and that led to SpaceX. And then ultimately, as I've produced for those of you who follow me on X particularly, and I've mentioned over and over that, as much as I used to have just the utmost respect for Elon Musk, I've got this shared sort of symmetry with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe and 42 and all of what that, what that reveals. And I thought that Elon was very interesting, but more importantly, I'd hung my hat on Elon as a game changer in terms of the energy paradigm because of Tesla. Turns out that I've given him a lot more credit than I probably should have throughout all these years. I still want a Tesla X, but maybe less so than I did before. But the realities of Elon Musk are absolutely absurd. Look, let's just start with the bare essence of who the guy is. He didn't create Tesla. He was a shareholder that came in to become influential, that would buy the company, and he is a genius in terms of, engineering and software. And I don't remember what he was about to study at Stanford, but obviously he's a technical genius on many fronts, but not so much to be the ultimate innovator to create Tesla. That was already in the mix. There were already the guys and the engineers that put it together. I think if I were to give Elon over the course of the last 15 years any specific credit, it's that he'd hired many, many gung-ho people around him to really push the envelope and make miracles happen, which they did, but with an incredible impetus, an incredible, what are the words that I'm looking for? I mean, it's support of the United States government. There's just no question about it. I mean, there's all sorts of incentives. There was all sorts of guarantees. There was all sorts of loan guarantees. There was all sorts of incentives by way of tax incentives to build the Fremont plant and so on and so forth that would ultimately lead then to Solar City, again, all in on the renewable energy paradigm and all of those things that were happening at that throughout that era. Not to mention, of course, what would lead to SpaceX. But there were always government subsidies. And then ultimately, there was a lot of, because of what I revealed to you guys over and over and over, that our financial system has been really a massive casino for 13 years where the whales never lose. And so there's these pump and dump schemes. And then we had, post 2008, tens of trillions of dollars that I'm revealing to you that went into the system to be able to make all of this stuff happen. But then that led to further backdoor scenarios from the Federal Reserve into the financial system that could then be used, for example, during COVID, things like a massive stock manipulation and pump and dump schemes and all of these meme stocks and everything else that took place during COVID, when people did have, in many ways, excess money, but not from, the stimulus of the tax incentives. It was the PPP loan fraud and many other elements of that led to people to, putting money into meme stocks. And Elon was the beneficiary of that. Not to mention, of course, what we saw in crypto, and then of course Bitcoin and all that goes with it, that led to further absolute wipeouts in the form of the likes of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. But it's interesting when you look back at who Elon was. Elon ultimately started in fintech, and of course that's where he started with Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel's company Palantir is deeply embedded with the Central Intelligence Agency, and their tech is about data gathering. Okay, so he's been the deep state forever. Peter Thiel is a guy that basically bankrolled, who is now the vice president for the Republican Party under Trump, J.D. Vance, the so-called hillbilly LG, and all that goes with that, even though he, of course, came out of Yale into a hedge fund and all that elicits, which he left the Midwest long ago, which, of course, we're seeing play out now, and all of the things that have led to and are coming out of Tim Walz, who is now the VP pick for Harris. But let's finish with this idea, and then I'll get to why that I'm super motivated to be able to bring this information to you and more to Crossroads. Maybe no different than every other crossroads that I've identified for the past 2.5 years, but maybe more so than ever before. So finishing with the Peter Thiel, deep state, Elon Musk connection and billionaire apparatus that was subsidized by a handful of initiatives, both from the government to try to rebuild the paradigm during the Obama administration by really electrifying the electric car industry. And that all happened with all of the stimulus that followed with Obama after the great financial crisis, because initially what we were all sold was the $700 billion troubled assets relief program that really came through the Bush administration, but that was ultimately matched almost dollar for dollar in the stimulus program during the Obama administration that happened once Obama took office. And one thing I've been super, super critical of Obama throughout is that Obama sold us a bag of goods, because Obama, this guy who's charismatic and really the perfect sort of semblance of what this country needed at that time. And we were all dying for a, FDR New Deal moment. And Obama had the public sort of critical mass moment to be able to make that happen. But instead, as I've revealed to you in many of these truth bombs, that Obama put all of the engineers of disaster that created this system that I'm revealing to you to be able to save itself and ultimately enrich itself, which led to all of these things that I'm talking about as it relates to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is very fond of pointing out and manufacturing and hyperinflating through what they call amplification certain issues of fear and dread, whether it's immigration, and most of that is misinformation and disinformation, especially that the Democrats are allowing in illegal immigrants to steal elections, which is absolutely absurd. You don't get the opportunity to get registered to vote if you're not a legal citizen. That's just absolutely absurd. But this is one of the many defecating lies in mass that this platform that Elon Musk is the face for, which is the ultimate global propaganda platform that I think Joseph Goebbels would have been super impressed by. And who is Joseph Goebbels? I've said his name on many of these truth bombs in the past. You should look him up if you don't know who he is, but he was the head of propaganda for the Nazis and Hitler, and he was basically Hitler's number 2 guy. Going back to who Elon Musk is in the context of where I left off by way of the fintech relationship with Peter Thiel and all things what they now call the PayPal mafia, which has led to Palantir, which is Peter Thiel's group, which is involved with the deep state, which is the guys that bankrolled J.D. Vance, who is this, supposed Oshek's Midwestern candidate, that literally came out of Yale, ultimately into a hedge fund, which is another part of this entirety of the story that I'm telling you. But I'm trying to manufacture your understanding that it's basically a cabal. Okay, it's a cabal of tech billionaires that are developing a scenario for a specific outcome that has led to what we have seen basically escalate and escalate and escalate and escalate on a daily basis, corresponding and in collaboration with, of course, the Trump, candidacy, which is nothing but bloviating lie after lie after lie within this sort of formula of Trump, what she's known for decades and decades and decades, because he's been a criminal for decades. Which, if you just look simply through many of my truth bombs, you'll see just a few of them back. I think if this is episode number, I said 503, I think we're like at 499, where I did an incredible dialogue with David K. Johnston, the nation's foremost expert on Donald Trump, who reveals the stuff that Donald Trump's been involved with for literally decades and decades and decades. And I highly encourage you to watch that, because it's also involves a gentleman who is my mentor, a guy who really should be the Attorney General of the United States, a gentleman by the name of William K. Black. And I don't want to really go into his resume right now, because you can find him in many of the interviews that I've done. And he's the guy that basically showed me the light, to which led to my work, that you can find at www.thecon.tv, which we made available for free, which is the blueprint for everything that I'm telling you, but with the details and the whistleblowers and the information that the entirety of the government, particularly during the Obama administration, chose to cover up, because they wanted to protect the financial class, which ultimately is the billionaire class, which then they fed those with the money, free money, illegally for over, I think we're 14 years, basically. It's my 13th year on this odyssey to really uncover all of this information. But it's incredible how it's coming to this crescendo because of how I'm involved, specifically as it relates to Elon Musk. Because as I was starting to go into, before I go off on all of these circuitous sort of, stream of consciousness, is because these different threads, because they're all relevant for you to see all of the different pieces of the puzzle of which it is that I'm revealing to you, because everybody knows that the system is rigged, the system is corrupt, that it's not fair, that the law is not equal, that there's weird stuff going on. But in the meantime, our country has just been shattered and is in this downward spiral in a level of stupidity that I've never seen in my lifetime, that I'm ashamed of. But I know, and I used this in one of my hashtags recently, that while America is monumentally stupid right now, millions of Americans aren't. And I have to connect with you, and I have to connect with you immediately. So if you're happening to watch this, please share, please spread the word. The hashtag truth is marching, because once again, just like a month ago, I got booted off of Twitter yesterday for this infraction. But I got to finish up this last piece of the puzzle with Elon to make this even make more sense. Okay, so I've established that Elon Musk has been subsidized the whole time. So in addition to him proclamating all of these lies all over the internet, which are millions upon millions of literally the nature of hate speech, of intimidation, of threatening violence, of lying, of defamation, of slander, of a number of things that aren't free speech, even though Elon proclaims free speech. And he's not just doing it in the United States. There's been some other mayhem that's happening in the UK because of a stabbing that led to this whole issue of immigration that's leading to fights and people getting killed in the streets of the UK, because he's amplifying all of that, which they're trying to do on the border here. Of course, Alex Jones being his ultimate, what I call squeal like a pig for both Putin and for Elon. But they're vectors of lies. And what I have discovered and what I've seen and what I call out all the time, in addition to everything that I've just mentioned, is that if we see accounts like Alex Jones, or if we see Marjorie Taylor Greene, or if we see Lauren Boebert, who I affectionately call Horan Hobart, for example, or like I said, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I affectionately refer to as Marjorie Gangrene, Fox, the rest of these guys, they have programmers that are ultimately the exact same thing that happened in 2016 when a guy by the name of Prigozhin, who is now dead because he got plane crashed by Putin after turning the tanks around in the Ukraine and heading towards Moscow, which of course is a no-no. Putin has absolute control, and there Prigozhin went. But at one point, he had a favored nation status with Putin, even though I think he started off as a chef, but ultimately became the head of this IRA agency, which was like the tech agency of the KGB that were involved with troll farms that basically tried to create as much controversy, and they get the population literally at wit's end with one another to create a basically civil war scenario, which, as I've discovered over the course of many years, is basically the techniques of both the KGB and, of course, the CIA and countries throughout the world, and has been since the Cold War after World War II. But it just came home finally to roost for us through this methodology that big time billionaires like Peter Thiel, and then ultimately the Mercers, who created Cambridge Analytica, which was another part of this whole thing, which uses algorithms to build up nauseating lies and deceptions and all sorts of things to create chaos and to sow discord, so to speak. Which this has been going on for the last 8 years on overdrive from the same billionaire tech sector that happens to be involved with the CIA. You can't make this type of stuff up, but that is fueled because of this billionaire class that is literally on the receiving end of what I call socialism for the mafiocracy, because it is. And then ultimately, Elon was able to purchase, because Jack Dorsey was looking to sell, because I guess the actual market cost of Twitter was dropping, but Elon bought it at the top level. Now that I think about it, but they really wanted the platform. Who's they? Did Elon Musk reach into his pocket and pull out $44 billion to pay for X, now affectionately called, of course, it was Twitter at the time? No. And by the way, don't forget that Elon said that he wanted to protect free speech, right? That was the whole reason why he was, pulling this, backdoor purchase of Twitter. But what most people don't understand is that no, he didn't pay for X out of his own pocket, which he could have done. No, he financed it with private equity ventures, and that I believe include Blackstone, but all the biggest players in private equity were involved. And then also Saudi Arabia, or probably more specifically, the kingdoms of Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund were put into play to be able to purchase Twitter. For what ends? For free speech, according to Elon. But what I've been calling out over and over and over on this platform is that it's a platform of propaganda that ultimately, in my theory, is all of those players behind the scenes want to create this religious theocracy that's blended with a global white sort of supremacist revolution that is phase wherever you're at in the timeline. The stuff that took place in the United States in the 20s and even before, when you get back to the end of the Civil War and to Jim Crow and everything else, but it manifested white supremacist groups such as America First, that Rachel Maddow recently revealed through incredible and detailed information, that were also involved with literally the Nazis. Not figuratively, not on the same page like I'd always thought, that they had kind of a shared sort of a supremacist ideology, because I had already known that the Nuremberg laws and also Hitler had a fascination with Jim Crow and an appreciation for North American genocide, for example. Those were things that Hitler was fond of as the evolution of the United States. And of course, the Nazis were trying to gain as much exposure and influence in the world as they were trying to take over the world for 1,000 years of the Third Reich, right? And as it goes, in terms of the myth of the story, was that as Hitler was, dying, he got the message out that, he hoped that groups around the world would follow his lead in what he sacrificed himself to create, ultimately a world run, or, where the white race enslaves the rest of the world. I mean, that's pretty much the paradigm, okay? And so ultimately, what you see as a result of all things post the 2016 election, all things that Putin was involved with Trump, and I know that the naysayers, which are all, I believe, on the payroll of Putin, that start with, and it's the most unbelievable betrayal of truth that I have actually seen in my lifetime. But Matt Taibbi, a guy that used to be an excellent journalist, which many of us now understand is just a fool and a tool in the full circus of this monstrosity that we've allowed to create. Because I've got another theory on that, but I want to finish with Elon Musk and the subsidies and the backdoor trillions of dollars to basically betray us, because all of these guys have been in the centrifugal force of finance from the beginning of the end, which was in 2009, which is what I continue to reveal to you. And all of the powers that be, whether it's Putin, and Putin was on the downside of Russia being shorted back in 1998 through an operation known as long-term capital management that were shorting the rubles, that basically sent the Soviet Union into a tailspin that ultimately would bankrupt it, which would lead to all of this other turmoil that Putin would end up becoming the ultimate power guy because he came out of the KGB and knew how to handle corruption and everything else, because Russia is no longer a communist country and hasn't been for decades. It's a mafiocracy. But they're very, very knowledgeable. And I know that, and it's my theory about this, but I believe Steve Bannon was picking up the sort of baton of the America First movement that would wind up, according to Rachel Maddow's analysis, in the McCarthy era. And I always thought the McCarthy era was purely anti-communism within the context of the Red Square and post-World War II and the Cold War. It turns out it was more locked and loaded with the Nazi movement of the America First that used all the same techniques that we're seeing on display by Trump and MAGA every single day. Now, what I've let everybody know on social media, particularly on X, is that it just validates and confirms what I've been revealing to you the whole time, that I've always understood that Rachel Maddow is and I call her the director of the communications of the revolving door Wall Street meritocracy Democratic Party, because she has the resources, she has the capacity, she has the intellect to be able to do the deep dive investigations to reveal these extremely important truths, i.e. ultra, but she never went into what it is that I'm revealing to you, which is how the world's largest racketeering enterprise smash and grab the world, which is a technique that imperial powers have been doing since the 1700s, but on a much more technical and global scale, given all of the work that we show you in the con, all of the work that I've provided to you in the Real Untouchables, and my previous 503 truth bombs. If this is 504, maybe it's 503. But the long and the short of it is, all of this information I'm revealing, the ultimate intersection of everything is that the Federal Reserve of the United States provided tens of trillions of dollars of liquidity in the aftermath of the largest racketeering enterprise in the history of the world that destroyed the global economy, that would ultimately, when everybody was on their backs in a turtle position, struggling to get up and see which way the world was turning because it was so disorienting. It was financial terrorism. It was a financial 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or whatever metaphor you want to make for millions and millions of people. But ultimately, as all of that vulnerability was happening, because when you're on your heels or if you're on your back, you're not very effective at fighting. And that was the point. That's why it's called smash and grab. It's literally a technique of the powerful, and it always has been. And what they did was they provided, like I said, tens of trillions of dollars of liquidity, but illegally, to the financial system that was bankrupt, and that was bankrupt through the racketeering that I revealed to you in my work, the con. But that leads you to understand that guys like Elon Musk, who came out of fintech, that ultimately got into the auto, into Tesla and the renewable energy paradigm as it relates to electric, but SpaceX and solar and everything else, the subsidies and the billions of dollars that were provided to Elon, and ultimately the nature of the way the market is because of the pump and dump schemes and everything else, it all collectively made Elon the richest guy in the world. Now, by the way, Elon doubled and tripled his wealth during COVID, which is exactly what I'm telling you, because unless you're completely insane, you know that not the market didn't grow exponentially to buy more and more Teslas. This was all the scheming of the dance of the hyperinflated pump and dump schemes that led to the stock, because that's just the nature of what we've done with the Federal Reserve post 2009. We've given tens of trillions of dollars illegally to the billionaire apparatuses for free that continue to betray us all. And now the ultimate exclamation point on it is what I've been saying on my riffs on X for probably 2.5 years now, that corruption births and fuels fascism. So to close this up, because I got to jump on another call here in a moment, that Elon Musk is now pretty much well known, even in mainstream. Last night, Laura O'Donnell is like, oh my God, Donald Trump lies every single word he says. Oh my God, Elon Musk is basically this tidal wave of lies and grift. And to what end? To basically sell all of this stuff that I'm telling you, to create, the ultimate, like I said, corruption burrs and fuels fascism. These tech billionaires have got more, as do the billionaires and the billionaire apparatuses have more power than the governments around the world, because they own the governments, because of what I'm talking about, revolving door. And so the platform that I call out over and over and over with Elon Musk, I'm like, look, man, this guy might be the richest guy in the country, but he got subsidies and he's calling everybody else, communists or, misinformation left and right, when he's the recipient of massive socialism. And I put him at the head of the Politburo. And if you don't know what the Politburo is, that's exactly what this is. It's basically corporate communism. It's corporate communism or corporate fascism, depending on who you're looking at, but it's all the same thing. It's centralization of power, and it's the full faith and credit of the United States that's providing all of this liquidity to the guys that are betraying us. And so what I did that got me in X jail 3 days ago was that JD Vance, there was a video on X that was circulating that I came across, and you know how it goes when you're kind of looking at all the different threads and you're doing whatever you do, and it's usually you kind of jump to the have like an immediate reaction to it. But it was pretty clear what the message was being sent, that JD Vance was on the tarmac in Wisconsin because both his jet and Vice President Kamala Harris's Air Force Two were in the same place at the same time because of the campaigning. And there was this video of JD Vance and his goons literally marching lockstep, like they were the Gestapo, to go intercept Kamala Harris. But you could tell it was one of those moments like Trump in the 2016 election, where he basically took up all the space of Hillary Rodham Clinton and was like daring her to push him out of the way, because he was being, what is the word? It starts with a P. He was not a prognosticator. He was, you know what I'm saying? He was basically trying to create a situation, right? And a situation that most people who don't have the capacity to understand all things Trump and what he's doing was to project power, right? And that he's the go-to guy, and that, he has the strength to lead, and all of those types of things. And that's what I was seeing after a tough week for JD Vance, because everybody's laughing about him, about the couch. And of course, Kamala's vice president pick was, and I got to finish this up real quick, the go-to high school football coach that went to the state championship and was a teacher and everything else, and who's the good guy. And that's exactly what America needs. And the guy who made that decision is Eric Holder, and it was about as savvy and also underhanded as it gets, all things considered, because of what I'm telling you, because Eric Holder works from the machine. They can't let you know this, and neither can Elon Musk. And so I said on this tweet, I said, hey, man, if it were me, I would have run over to JD Vance and I would have given him exactly what he was asking for. I got flagged right away. It turned into a violent speech infraction. And they basically, shut me down. And the way the process works is they're like, admit to the crime, then you got to sit out 7 days. But then they put you into a situation where it's like, okay, if you have, repeat, if you're a repeat offender, like for felonies or, even violent crimes, the law has elevated consequences every time somebody gets into the system. And that's what's happened to me. And I think that's what gives them the opportunity to de amplify you, considering all the truths that I'm revealing. And then in this particular case, one, how can you ultimately interpret that I was acting in a violent way? No, I wasn't. I would have just asked him what he wanted and given him what he wanted, right? But just think about the information I have. Just think about the information that Elon Musk has to quash, just like the whole system itself. Look at what he's doing by way of propaganda. I am the biggest threat that exists, not just to Elon Musk, but to the billionaire class that got that way through highway theft of our governments that now control our governments. And they are absolutely pulling the last, shall we say, betrayal to put the death knell in our democracy. And I am defending the Harris Walsh candidacy at the moment, even though I'm trying to get them to understand the Clean New Deal, but I can't get there if I'm being quashed by the system. So that's why I'm doing this. I got to jump to another call. I hope you guys got something out of this. Onwards and upwards. Be well. I'm always available for questions, but people, this is all about the Clean New Deal. We got to break this thing open and wide and sky high, and you need to become a nuclear vector for truth, which is the big bang of truth. Okay, thanks, guys.